You best stick around. The song's about 2 hours long. I'm just joking about that. Oh yeah, there's a spiritual river down in East Tennessee called that Holy Nolichucky. It means river of death in that holy Cherokee language, oh yeah. It's a place I spent many nights and days, a holy place where I learned many spiritual things. Now see, it's called the River of Death for many different reasons. It's a real psychedelic river. It's killed many a man for many a reason. Now see, there's this one specific holy river bend that I would go to all the time and go swimming, and all kinds of other people go there too. And lots of people have died jumping off this big old rock right across the way because there's a big psychedelic undertow that pulls the man down to their death right there beneath the rock. But I would always go out there and chug a million brewskis and jump right in there. I was never scared. I love jumping off cliffs and I love them rapid rivers. They're my favorite things maybe in the whole world. So I go there all the time back in the day when I lived in Johnson City, Tennessee. A psychedelic cursed land, Johnson City, Tennessee. But a beautiful place at the same time, oh yeah. And I'd go out almost every day to this spiritual riverside spot. And I'd hang out there. And I'd go dip in the water and puff a pound to my dome on the big old rock. And then I'd jump in. Now see, my epileptic friend, Nasty Nate, that I was telling you about earlier, the epileptic prophet, me and him would go out there together a lot of the times. And I remember one time he was on the edge of the rock, right at the precipice, about to jump off. And all of a sudden he had a big old seize right there on the edge of the rock. And he goes, "Oh!" And he stepped back. His feet brought him backwards. And then he regained consciousness. And then he jumped right off the rock. He had a seize on the edge. And when he got back to the shore, he lit up a pound blunt. Now see, another time, I was out there by myself. I went up onto the spiritual big rock, thinking about jumping in. And I decided it was about that holy time. And all of a sudden I saw this psychedelic little path leading up to the peak of the rock that I'd never seen before, some sort of crazy animal trail. So I started following that psychedelic animal trail. I got up to the top of the rock, I realized it was a holy Canadian goose nest, oh yeah. And there was all these little baby geese chilling. And all of a sudden the big mama pops out from behind. And she comes striking at me, flying at the speed of light. So I ran down the rock, and I jumped into the water. And I landed right where that spiritual undertow is. When I popped back up, and the geese, that gangster goose, is charging at me, trying to peck at me, trying to bite me. And I'm swimming up this holy rapid. It's a deadly rapid that has killed many men. And I'm going as fast as I can swimming upriver while this goose is just striking at me left and right. And biting my arms and stuff. And going crazy, making psychedelic noises and making the most angry faces I ever seen on a pimp goose. It was going crazy. And I was going crazy myself. I was swimming so hard. And finally I got to the other side. And I crawled up onto the beach and I collapsed down there. And these Mexican gangsters came over. who had been watching me battle the goose in the water. And they was laughing. And then they gave me a brewski. And I chugged that damn thing. And I pumped another pound and got right back in. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That also reminds me of the holy rapper from Georgia, Jehovah the Phenom, a huge gangster that I met one day behind an abandoned hot dog place called Wieners with a Z at the end of it. And we met behind the abandoned hot dog place and we puffed a pound blunt together. And then we went back to the psychedelic temple of love where I was living at the time, and we recorded a holy tune together. And that tune I put out on a spiritual album. Jehovah the Phenom is a true gangster. But a couple days later I said, Jehovah, you ever been to that spiritual Chattahoochee River? The Chattahoochee's a holy river running in Atlantwese, Georgia. And he said, no, I've never been there. I said, we're going to go swimming, my friend. We're going to go jump off some big old cliffs on the side of the river. And so we got to the holy spot. And it was time for Jehovah to hop in the water and swim across to the big old cliff. And he hopped right in. Now see, the river was in flood stage. It had been torrentially downpouring the past few days. And so the river was stronger and higher than I've ever seen it before or since. So yeah, it was going crazy. It was mad high and the rapids were real strong and sucking us all around. And Jehovah got in the water and he made it out. He waded out to the middle of the river. And all of a sudden, he started sinking and screaming at me. He said, I cannot swim. I said, you cannot swim? What you doing getting in the motherfucking river? You should have told me, man. But he's sinking. He's dying. So I hop in the water. I pick up this 300-pound gangster rapper named Jehovah the Phenom. And I'm grabbing him. And I'm trying to swim against the psychedelic currents. And as we just sinking and sinking and sinking and bobbing and weaving. And we grinding all in that holy water. And we flowing. And we flowing, and we flowing, and finally we get to the other side. It was about a 30-minute ordeal. My arms was dead tired. And then all of a sudden, this crazy movie crew comes up. And they had a guitar, and they said, would you be in my movie today? They on the beach on the side of the river. And I said, what you want? They said, would you be Jesus playing a guitar? And I said, yeah. And so they said, take this guitar and wade it out into the middle of the river on that holy island over there. And so I waded out with this guitar over my head to the middle of this spiritual island right in the middle of the river. And I was sitting there playing some psychedelic tunes while they was filming me. And I looked down and I realized I was playing the soundtrack to a spiritual battle between a big old water moccasin and a huge catfish that was battling each other. And the water moccasin was swallowing this big ass catfish that was like a foot long. And the catfish was flopping around and they was bobbing in and out of the water on the shore listening to my tunes and just wilding out, grinding, going crazy. And then I think they sunk into the water. And I said, did you guys catch that on film? And they said, yeah. But when I watched the movie about a month later, they didn't even leave me in the movie at all. But they made my guitar playing the spiritual soundtrack. So that's what's up. And then I got back to the other side of the river. Me and Jehovah, we went home. We dogged a slice. We puffed a pound and then woke up the next day and did it all again. This song called the Nolichucky River Blues. It's about that spiritual river down in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. If you ford that river, you might wind up dead. Many a good man lies upon that bed. And if you do be on top of your game, to see a young man sink down, that would be a shame. Me and that river, man, we are the same. Oh yeah. same feelings are flowing through our veins. The forces